I mean, on television. I say that because that's the air that we breathe. And the more that that's piped into our minds and into our lives, we take it as an accepted reality. You ever bullied in school? Right? I moved into a new neighborhood when I was 14. Everybody wants to try you on, right? Fortunately, I was playing sports, and I got in with the crowd real quick playing sports. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. The new kid on the block. It wasn't easy. On the weekend, I was up at up in the country at the reserve or the community, and a young man after mass, fine-looking young man, 23 years of age. Fine-looking young man. I know his parents, and he was standing, and he looked a bit sad. And I'd say the guy's 6'1" or 6'2". And I said, "You don't look happy." He said, "My girlfriend took her life at Christmas." You know how many young people are taking their lives? Look at the girl up in Parisboro 2 weeks ago. Bullied at school. Bullied on this machine. Couldn't even go home, but what they were getting at her through this machine. That's a total disrespect for life. Now, the ultimate disrespect comes when we take the life of another person. Right? We take the life of another person. Either a preborn child or an elderly person who can't help themselves. Isn't that unbelievable when we think of that? Now, did that ever exist in another world? What do you think existed in the world that Jesus lived in? Slavery was an institution. I've lived with a lot of black people over the years. I almost feel like apologizing to them for the way we treated them. I love Native people. I grew up close to Native people. They've taught me a lot about life and about faith. When I was a kid, in our church, we belonged to a larger parish like this until we built our own parish. Do you know what? The people from the community, the Aboriginal community, I hate the word reserve, the Aboriginal community, they would come to the church, and there was a roped off section in the right-hand corner by the door. What do you think that was for? That was for the Native people. One of the top bands in the 50s, one of the top bands in the country, in the U.S., came to give a concert in Sydney, the Ink Spots. They were all black. Absolutely wonderful musicians. They couldn't stay at the Isle Royal Hotel. You know why? They were black. Respect for life issue? When I look out at our church now and I see people from different ethnic backgrounds, I say, wow, I love it. Because you know where I come from? Northern Ireland. My grandfather. That's why I was rooting for Rory McIlroy today in the Masters tournament. I think he imploded, but Rory's only 21. Do you know who won?
There were 5 people
It was Charles. Yeah, Charles.
Is it over?
Schwartz.
Oh, Schwartz. He won it. Young guy from South Africa.
He did really well
At one
in the
point,
last couple.
At one point there were 5 people co-leaders.
Yeah, so many.
I know, I watched that. And I had to leave and come here and have mass. Part of the territory, right? But I was rooting for Rory, but I also liked the kids. I gotta say, I'm not a Tiger fan. He's got not only a bad lifestyle, he's got a bad attitude. And that attitude comes with privilege. When you grow up as a privileged person, you think the world owes you everything, right? I don't like rooting against somebody, but I think I root for the other person. So I look at that and I say that we have 2 extremes. We have the taking the life of a preborn, and we have the taking of a life of a very fragile person at the end of their lives. We have abortion, we have euthanasia. In between, we have all kinds of problems with violence. And we go back to Jesus. Slavery was an institution. You don't think they had abortion? Well, the Romans were famous, and the Greeks were very famous for infanticide. That means killing children. Don't you remember in Matthew's Gospel where Herod demanded that all the Hebrew firstborn males, that their lives be terminated? That was the world. The way they dealt with dissenters was to take them out on the hill and to execute them on a cross. And they usually left them hanging there for 3 or 4 days. As an example, say, you step out of line, here's what happens to you. Okay? That was the world he lived in. Did he join any kind of individual movements? I don't see that he did. What he did was he preached a higher life. He preached nonviolence, and he preached the message of love. And he said, even though it's a longer route, it's a more dangerous route, it's a more delicate route, nevertheless, nonviolence will ultimately bring about conversion. Violence against violence creates more violence. Do you know how many people died in wars in the 20th century? We shouldn't be very proud of that. 100 million people. Look at what happened in 9/11. How many people died in the building in New York on 9/11? 3,000 people? We went into Iraq and killed 300,000 people to get even with them. That wasn't even where the problem was. Does that mean we don't deal with people, with anarchists and people that are going to, people like Hitler and people like Gaddafi? And those people shouldn't be dealt with? Oh, no. Jesus never taught that. No. He never taught that we shouldn't defend ourselves against an unjust aggressor. He didn't teach that. But you know, there are 3 deaths that are mentioned in the New Testament. There's the death of John the Baptist, there's the death of Jesus, and there's the death of the first martyr, Stephen. Do you know the difference between the death of Stephen and the death of John the Baptist? The death of Jesus. Because both Jesus and Stephen, the first Christian martyr, they died asking the Father to forgive those who had put them to death. Love of enemies. I don't know of any other religion that teaches love of enemies, but Jesus does. I've experienced that in my life. You know, people that I didn't get along with. People that I didn't even like. And I decided I'd pray for them. You know what? There are a couple of people in life today, we're not close friends. We're good friends. And I attribute that to the fact that because of my prayer for them, I came to see them differently than I thought they were. I saw them differently. So you know, we have to, if we're going to be Christians and we're going to be have a respect for life, we have to have respect for life in all areas of life. And we have to trust that if we do live a nonviolent life, and that means that we stand up for those who... I really admired those kids in the valley 2 years ago, last year, you know, where the kid was being hassled because he had a pink shirt on or something. Didn't I admire those kids? They stood up for him. And once they stood up, all kinds of other kids in school stood up too. We need somebody to stand up. Stand up and say, One of the great Christian martyrs of the 20th century, Maximilian Kolbe, he was a Polish priest who was in a Nazi extermination camp. And they were going to kill this man, 3 children or whatever. He came forward and said, take my life in place of his. That's the ultimate sacrifice. Those are the people we want to get behind. And you know what? I've talked too much.